What's going on, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Daily Betslip. Happy August. We're getting towards the end of the Major League Baseball season and the beginning of the 2022 NFL season. I got my guy Ben Heisler with me today. We got a jam-packed show, Ben. We got MLB best bets, a bunch of different best bets in the MLB. We got our game of the night with the Giants and the Dodgers. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to talk some NFL preseason betting, get you geared up for the start of the 2022 season. So, Ben, how are we feeling today?
I'm feeling good, Peter. I know that people can't tell judging behind you that we're actually in the start of football season. It is the start of August. You're rooting for a quality baseball team that just got better today by trading for Scott Efros. But yes, football season is officially underway, and excited to hear your perspective on how you're approaching betting on the preseason, because you and I both put down some notes. I'm interested to see where they mesh, if any of them possibly disagree. But stacked show and very excited time in Major League Baseball, especially with the trade deadline coming up about 24 or so hours away.
Yeah, this is like we talk about the summer sometimes. It's like it feels really slow in sports. And the last couple of years, we didn't have to deal with it as much because the NBA season ran so long.
Right.
But this year, it's like August coming, like getting to training camp and getting to the trade deadline being later than it normally is this year. It's been very fun to kind of see all this stuff, this stuff all come at the same time. You're like, yes, finally, we got some sports going. So speaking of sports, we have another sport we haven't talked about a lot. Soccer is our bad beat of the day. I believe it was, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, it's in the MLS, right?
It was in the MLS.
One?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes the sports betting gods, Peter, they grace us with their presence in a wide variety of ways. And this one came in the form of a disastrous bad beat for anybody that was taking Orlando FC. This is a game played on Sunday. Orlando was up 1-0. You can also say 1-0 if those of you that don't actively dive into the world of soccer. But Orlando City was up 1-0 in the 93rd minute. And for anybody that doesn't pay attention to a lot of soccer, it's 2 45-minute halves, and then you get the extra time. So in a matter of 3 minutes, there was about 6 minutes of extra time, DC United scored 2 goals, and they won. That doesn't happen, especially like an extra. Maybe like you're able to force a shootout. But no, not only did DC United come back with goals from Durkin and I believe Fantas is the name, but they come back and win the game. So for anybody that was holding on to an Orlando City FC ticket or just an Orlando FC fan, that's a loss that you're going to hold with you for a long, long time.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think I was thinking about this today when you sent this in for bad beat. Like, you hear the cliche, like, play through the whistle in like every sport, basically, whether it's basketball, football, soccer. I think soccer is like the number one sport where you have to play through the whistle because extra time, nobody really knows. Like, I know there's like a rough estimate. Nobody really knows when the game's going to end. So it's like, you got to play the whole time. So that's a crazy, crazy comeback. I think that would probably turn me off of soccer betting if I ever like put myself to get into it. I'd be like, no, if that happened to me, I'd be like, no, I'm all set.
You're like, all right, I've had my soccer fix. I can wait until the World Cup. I'll just do some futures. I'm just going to pump the brakes a little bit. I don't know. I think you can experience a similar type of bad beat like betting on baseball. Like, remember we talked about that game between the Reds and your Yankees, where people ended up blowing that lead. The Yankees at that point were 48-0, and the Reds were 0-49 when down 3 runs in the bottom of the ninth. Like, to me, I think it's kind of on a similar type wavelength, right? It's not supposed to happen, but sports happens, and then you get a ridiculous bad beat that occasionally comes along. Sometimes you luck out in those situations too. And I don't know, Peter, I think in the grand scheme of things, these types of situations kind of even out. But when they happen, boy, yeah, you probably want to step back for a little bit.
Yeah, that's just such a tough one because I think in a soccer game where if you're up in extra time, like it feels like it's over at that point. So that is an absolutely wild bad beat. Let's jump into our best bets today. We got a bunch of stuff in the MLB today. Obviously, that's what's going on. But first, I want to look at our Twitter best bet because our guy Cody, he's always got us. He's always hooking it up with the Twitter
always
best
there
bets.
For the team.
So let's jump into his pick. He is taking Alex Bregman over 1.5 total bases. It's plus 120 against the Boston Red Sox tonight. The Astros are hosting the Red Sox. He says Bregman is 8 for 16 with 3 doubles and a home run off of Sox starter Nathan Eovaldi. He also likes Jose Altuve and Yordan Alvarez as interesting options in this game. These stats look like the Astros are going to put some runs on the board. I agree with him here, Ben. I'm interested for your take. Evaldi's gotten rocked since coming back from the IL. I believe he has over a 13 ERA in his last 3 starts. And the Red Sox just in general have been terrible the past month or so. I know they don't have the greatest bullpen in the world either. So I don't mind taking a shot. I think sometimes with these hitter player props, and we've talked about it a bunch on the show, is just like you have to find guys who are really good in a matchup. Like that's sometimes just the way it is to go rather than just, picking the good hitters. Like the good hitters are good because against certain guys, they thrive. So when you find that, it feels like it's almost like an auto bet.
I think you're right. And I would also contend that even when Uvalde was healthy, remember, he got off to a pretty decent start to the season. In April and in May, the numbers were pretty good. Hadn't given up more than 3 earned runs. The game he started on May 17th against the Houston Astros, Uvalde went 1 2/3 innings. He gave up 6 earned runs, 5 home runs in the game. So this is a team that he faced this year, and it did not go particularly well. And that was at home. Now he's going to Houston, and that's going to be another tough situation. He's given up, 13 runs in his last 2 starts. He's only gone 8.2 innings pitched. I think it makes a ton of sense to stack up on plenty of Houston Astros. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe our Ian McMillan has Jose Altuve as his daily dinger pick. And Peter, for as much good work as the team here at BetSided has been doing, we are slumping a little bit in our daily dinger. I think we've gone about 6 days without clearing one over the fence. So if there is a pick to go ahead and do it today, Altuve, along with your pick of Pete Alonso and my pick of Eugenio Suarez, I feel like this is a good night, especially for some of those Astros players to really connect with the baseball.
Yeah, daily dinger is a tough. It's such a tough one to pick one guy. And I was joking with Reed yesterday when we were putting it together. He goes, "You can't pick Judge though, man." And I was like, "All right, fair." But if you just took Aaron Judge every night, like it wouldn't be a bad bet because now, honestly, though, now with the way his odds are, it would be a bad bet for the sake of just picking a guy to hit a home run. It would be fine. But I think I saw today he's like plus 185 to hit a home run. I was like, there's no way I'm betting that. That's insanity.
It's absurd. And obviously it's a good matchup for him. But yeah, if you look at our standings right now, I think I'm in the lead with either like 14 or 15 over the course of the season. But we're not picking the same guy. But if you chose Aaron Judge every night, yes, you would have the lead with 42 daily dingers. The problem is that the odds would be terrible. And most of those nights, he's not hitting a home run. And then you'd be down in the red.
Exactly. It's tough. It's picking the best power hitters is the fastest way to get one right. But it's also like the risk reward is just not, it's almost not worth it to take one every night.
Right. You pat yourself on the back a little bit if you get a guy with 4-1 or plus 500 odds. I think one of our guys hit on a 7-1 play maybe a handful of weeks ago. So that's where you start to feel really good about it.
Yeah, those are the best ones. So speaking of MLB best bets, let's just jump into our MLB best bets. So Ben, I know we both got 3 plays in the MLB. Let's alternate, go back and forth. You can kick us off. What do you got? What's your first play of the night?
Yeah, let's start with the Kansas City Royals and the Chicago White Sox. I actually have 2 plays on this game, but I'll go ahead and start with my prop first, and that's Tim Anderson. Under 1.5 total bases at minus 135. You would think for somebody like TA, who is one of the better contact hitters in Major League Baseball, guy who's like at one point a couple of years ago was the batting champion in the American League. But Peter, he has actually had a ton of issues against Brad Keller and the Kansas City Royals. In his career, he has 10 strikeouts compared to just 1 walk. He's hitting about 216. Not a lot of good, solid contact. And in fact, Keller has been one of those guys too, where he's put together some really nice numbers against Chicago. In addition to that, for whatever reason, like he's been unlucky this year. You would think a guy that's 5-11 coming into tonight's game would how unlucky can you be? Well, his expected ERA is in the 3s, and he's got an actual ERA about 4.3 this year. It's just a lot of hard contact that he's given up at times. Have just found the wrong spot. But for whatever reason, the Sox have not been able to square him up. I think it's an advantageous spot. And for somebody like TA, you're usually going to have to take that 1.5 number as opposed to just getting a half of a total base. And I just don't think it sets up well for him. So I like the under. I always root for Tim Anderson because he's one of my favorite dudes in Major League Baseball, Peter. But I don't think it's a good matchup for him tonight. And I think even with minus 135 juice, I like the under here at 1.5 total bases.
I'm also a big Tim Anderson fan, so I feel you there. But yeah, it's some of these 1.5 total bases, like it's tough to bet overs on them unless you really like the matchup because like guys, you could come away with a 1 for 4, a 1 for 3 with a walk type of night. And like if you hit a single, you're not clearing this prop. So
Right.
it's a tricky situation. Obviously, Tim Anderson not the biggest power guy of all time. Like he's a great contact hitter, he's going to hit over 300 almost every year. But 1.5, it's against a matchup that like you said, you don't like. I don't mind that at all. I also have a prop that I'm starting with today. I have a couple props today, actually. So
Love it.
first one I'm jumping into is Max Scherzer. Looking at him over 7.5 strikeouts, minus 105 against the Nationals tonight. I actually have 2 plays in this game, so I'll talk to the other one later. But Scherzer's been unreal since coming off the IL. Like you talk about a guy who, it doesn't seem like anything. He is just going to be the same guy every single year. Like he gets older and older and he still is pitching unbelievable. These are his strikeout numbers since returning in 5 games. He struck out 11, 9, 11, 8, and 6 batters over his last 5 games. The 6 strikeouts came against the Yankees, who are a decent team in avoiding the punch-out, but obviously a much better lineup than the Nationals.
Yeah.
I will caution here, the Nationals are actually the second best team in the league in terms of strikeouts per game. They only strike out 7.21 times per game. But at the same time, when you're facing Max Scherzer, like I'm going to put more weight on Max Scherzer to get this done than a bad Nationals lineup. Outside of Juan Soto, and Josh Bell, this lineup's just very questionable, in my opinion. So I think the fact that you're getting a Max Scherzer over at only minus 105, also like normally it's way juiced to the over. I think it's worth a shot here. The last thing I will say too is Scherzer's pitched 6+ innings in every start he's made since he came back. So you're going to get plenty of chances for him to get these outs. Again, bad Nationals team. They've had multiple games where they've scored fewer than 2 runs over their last 5-6 games. If he can push, a 6, 7, 8 inning performance, I think he just naturally is going to get there in terms of the strikeout number. So give me the over on Scherzer tonight.
Yeah, I like that play quite a bit, especially with the value that comes at minus 105. I think you're right. I think people are going to look at the Nationals and maybe the casual bettor will almost always want to go towards the over regardless. But I think a lot of the sharps will say, all right, well, you're right. The Nationals just aren't a team. The Royals are kind of similar to this too, where they're a bad team, but they still put the ball in play far more often than some of the better teams that don't. And even though you say you put the bat on the ball, good things happen. I think what they're underestimating, like you bring up, is Scherzer's ability to go deep in games. Like, if you're going to take him out, it's because he's struggling, or it's because he's had a lot of high-stress innings. If he's locked in and he's cruising along, the strikeouts will come, even if he's not necessarily at his level of strikeouts per 9, because of the innings and because the stuff tends to sometimes get better over the course of the game. Like, he's not a guy that I'm worried about third time through the order. So I think that play makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I'm all over Mad Max. If I'm gonna root for a Mets guy, like I hope I'm gonna make some money off of it at the same time. So we have a quick before Ben, we get to your next one. Beers and Bow Ties dropped in the chat. As a Braves fan, I pray Patrick Corbin throws a no-hitter. I hope he doesn't. You'll find out in one of my picks later on. But Ben, go ahead. Give us your second bet in here.
Yeah, our guy Beers and Bowtie says I have a better chance of winning the lottery than Patrick Corbin throwing a no-hitter. Yeah, By the way, you know that 1.3 billion Mega Millions ticket that was that came out on I think it was sometime late last week. I think it was on Thursday. About 20 minutes from where I grew up. At a Speedway gas station in, I think it was in Morton Grove, Illinois, like very close to Skokie. Like my grandmother lives about 5 minutes away from there. If only she would have just gone to the right Speedway.
Yeah.
placed a few dollars on it. But
Oh,
yes, Patrick Corbin not throwing a no-hitter tonight. Be great, be a nice little story, but certainly not going to happen. Peter, I want to go back to this Royals and White Sox game because I do feel like this is a good opportunity, not just to take the under on the Tim Anderson total bases at 1.5, but I think the Royals are a live dog here. White Sox are playing better baseball, but I mentioned Keller has had some solid numbers against this White Sox team. He's got a 3.77 ERA in July. He's only allowed 4 runs against the White Sox over the course of 14 innings this season. And he's done a really nice job against the White Sox lineup. And again, I think he's due for some positive regression here. So the fact that you can get him right now at about plus 145, I've seen the Royals as high as plus 150 at some other sports books tonight. I think Keller matches up well. And the Royals still have some decent arms in the back end of their bullpen. And the White Sox have had all sorts of up and down issues with some of their top guys in their pen as well. If it's a close game, it's almost an advantage for the Royals, depending on how Matheny tends to use some of these guys. That's been a bugaboo for them as well. With Keller, you kind of know when to take him out versus some of their other younger starters that he tends to leave in a little bit too long. As far as Michael Kopech goes, again, much better stuff than Keller, but his command has really had some issues too, especially in the last several weeks. So if the Royals, despite the fact that they don't strike out a lot, but they need to start walking a little bit more, if they get some free passes from Kopech tonight, get a couple runs on the board early and good hitting conditions in Chicago, I think this is a game that they can win. And I don't mind putting a little bit of risk behind it at around 1.5 odds. So yeah, give me the Royals tonight, plus 145, plus 150 if you can find it as a live dog tonight on the south side of Chicago.
I don't mind that at all. Royals coming into this game too with a lot of momentum. A comeback win against my Yankees yesterday, so
Right.
I don't mind that. They honestly impressed me in that series over those 4 games. Obviously, they had the 1-0 Yankees win where their bullpen looked really good, and then they kind of made them work for it. So for a team that's in last place, they're not as bad as their record looks.
Since they've started playing some of their younger guys, which took way too long for them to do, they've been much more competitive, and the product on the field has showed. So yeah, I think they're very much live in this game.
Yeah, no, I like that play quite a bit. I'm going to stick in the Nationals-Mets game. I'm going to talk my Patrick Corbin prop since he's on the front of the mind right now with everybody. So I'm going to take Patrick Corbin under 16.5 outs recorded. It's a little juicy, minus 125. But the reason I like this under for Corbin, you go back through his starts recently, he's allowed 17 runs, 16 earned runs over his last 3 starts. He's only pitched 10 2/3 innings in those games. And it's a little skewed because he only went 2/3 of an inning against the Dodgers his last time out and gave up 6 runs. He's getting rocked right now.
Yeah.
And so I was betting a bunch of Patrick Corbin unders and like if he was picking the other team's team total over. And like he found a way at the end of June, early July, where he was pitching like 7 innings but giving up 4 or 5 runs. And the Nationals were just like, screw it, we're going to leave him in the game. It doesn't really matter. Now he's pitching so poorly these last 3 starts, they can't even do that. Like he's getting destroyed. And the Mets are on fire right now. They've won 6 in a row. They've won it against tough competition on top of that. They knocked around Sandy Alcantara, who's the NL Cy Young favorite over the weekend. And so I don't see a scenario where if Corbin gets through 5, like that he comes out and gets 2 outs in the 6th as well against this Mets team. I'm betting on Pete Alonso was my daily dinger pick today because he has crazy numbers against Corbin. I believe he has 12 hits and 33 at bats.
Yeah, 4 home runs,
4 homers. Yeah, just absolutely dominates him. So I'm fading Corbin all the way here. I think the Mets are just way too good of a team and a lineup that's clicking right now. And if the Nationals like somehow decide to leave him in there to throw 110 pitches and get through 7 innings, like I'll wear that one on the chin. Like there's no way he's going to shut them down where he pitches like 6 scoreless and I lose this bet. It's just going to be whether or not the Nationals care about winning the game or not.
So Corbin's an interesting case study because, you know, those years in Arizona, he had one bad year back in 2016 at a 5.15 ERA. Kind of similar numbers to like what we're seeing this year, 5-13 on the season, wasn't striking many guys out. Like his peripherals are actually better than last year, but the ERA is way higher. He's averaging about another more strikeout per 9 innings. His walk rate is actually right around the same as it was, and his home runs per 9 are actually down. I know that there was talks about, if they trade Juan Soto, they might include Patrick Corbin in the deal as like a throw-in to try to help offset some of those salaries. But there's a part of me, Peter, that wonders, like, if he gets out of just a bad situation in DC, I'm not saying he'd be good, but I wonder if there's a team that can throw him in a pitching lab, try to get some stuff straightened out, because some of those peripherals are actually okay, but the games that he's been wearing it, especially as of late, like, he kind of just feels like he's going through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
You go ahead and get back into a pennant race like he was for the Nationals when he first got there. I wonder if you might be able to find something and perhaps make something out of it, especially if the Nationals are going to eat a bunch of that money.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting case, especially if you're like a team that needs a pitcher. Like, just why not take a flyer on him if you don't have to pay a ton of that money? I think it could be interesting. Ben, before we get to your last pick, Miles dropped in the chat. He said, how do you guys feel about the under today in the Giants-Dodgers game? We will talk about that in our Game of the Night segment, probably coming up in about 10 to 15 minutes here. So stick around for that. We will talk all things Giants-Dodgers. But Ben, go ahead, give us your third best bet in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, so there was a late announcement for the Miami Marlins tonight, and just a barn burner of a game, Peter, between the Cincinnati Reds and the Miami Marlins. Like, get your popcorn out, because this is, we were really debating between the Dodgers and the Giants for Game of the Night, but if it wasn't going to be them, Reds and Marlins were right near the top of the list for us. But I actually do think there's something intriguing here, and that's Jesus Luzardo going for Miami. This year, in 6 starts, his strikeout percentage is 34.5%. Like, that's an insane number for somebody. And Luzardo, just a handful of years ago, was considered one of the best pitching prospects in baseball. Remember, he got moved from Oakland in the Starling Marte trade. This is somebody that, if he figures it out in Miami, they're going to have another great young pitcher on their hands. And I'm just kind of going with the idea of stuff playing here. Hunter Green is another one of those guys. Like, he's going to be a solid big league pitcher because the stuff plays. But Luzardo's got more experience. He still is able to pitch a little bit lower in the zone. Green gives up a ton of home runs. The issue for Luzardo really has been health more than anything else. And the fact that you can get him right now at minus 104 at home against a Reds team that, they won a couple games against the Orioles, and the Orioles have hung around in the AL East. But I'm backing the stuff here, and I feel like this is a reasonable play for Luzardo going up against a Reds team that hasn't been able to hit lefties all that well this year. So I think he's in a great spot tonight, and I like the Marlins.
I don't mind that at all. I actually drafted Jesus Luzardo. Now that you bring him up in my fantasy baseball league, it was great to start the year, and then I ended up having to drop him when he got hurt because I just couldn't carry another injured guy on the roster.
Yeah, first start since, I believe, May 10th.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I don't mind that. I think also fading Hunter Green, like you said, like there's things to like about Hunter Green, but at the same time, like, he is just figuring it out, and he has a tendency to give up, the big home run, where some Marlins team that hasn't been great at the plate all season long, but you give them a pitcher that has the tendency to give up the big fly. It's a way to kind of put yourself into a game. So I don't mind that one at all. Going to go into my last best bet. We're looking at a no runs first inning in Orioles Rangers. Ben just mentioned the Orioles, who have been one of my favorite teams to bet on this year. But tonight I'm going to sweat out this first inning in this game. Going to be a tight one. But I like a couple things, and our guy Joe Summers actually wrote this up over at BetSided in his best no-run first inning picks today. The reason I like this is Rangers starter John Gray has been one of the best pitchers in baseball over the last 2 months. He's got a 2.65 ERA over his last 11 starts. And on top of that, the Orioles are one of the worst scoring teams in the first inning this year. They score in the first inning just 16.67% of the time. So on that side, I feel very comfortable about Gray getting through the first inning, not giving up a run. On the other side, I was looking at the Rangers today, Ben. They're actually 25th in baseball in OPS against right-handed pitchers. They're facing righty Spencer Watkins today. There's some things I don't love about Watkins. He has a 1.41 whip this year, which is a little bit concerning, but he hasn't allowed more than 3 runs in an entire start since May 11th. So I don't mind him being able to keep this lineup down in the first inning. He's actually pitched fairly well. Like his last start, they ended up winning against the Rays. He gave up 10 hits in 5 1/3 innings and still only gave up 3 runs. So there's things about him that, can make this a little bit of a sweat for no run first inning, but I'm so confident in the John Gray side that I'm going to back it here. I just also don't think either one of these offenses is fantastic. I think they're both just middling offenses. You look at most of their numbers, they're hovering around the bottom 10 in runs scored, OPS, batting average, all that stuff. So give me no run first inning here. I'm interested to see what you think about that one.
I like it quite a bit. Orioles offense has been scuffling as of late. You mentioned the play on Gray. I think it adds up. Rangers for a long time, that was a ballpark that trended on the side of getting some runs, and especially if Seager isn't 100% or he's not playing tonight, then yeah, I think that sets up well for the top of the lineup to maybe scuffle a little bit. And Watkins has been solid, so don't mind the play on the no run first inning at all. I think it's a solid card for you tonight, Pete.
Yeah, I'm going to be sweating this one. I'm really not looking. I hate taking no run first innings because I'm like, just strike everybody out. Like, don't even put the ball in play. Don't even make me worry about it. But at least I'll know right away. So I'll take that.
Exactly.
Let's get the recap.
It's a short sweat. It's like sprinting.
Yes. Let's get our recap graphic up and go through these. So tonight, Ben is on the Tim Anderson under 1.5 total bases against the Royals. He's also taking the Royals plus 145 as underdogs against the White Sox. And he's on the Marlins at minus 104 against the Cincinnati Reds. I am on Max Scherzer's strikeouts over 7.5 against the Washington Nationals. I'm also on Patrick Corbin under 16.5 outs recorded in that game. So pick for both starting pitchers. And then, as we just talked about, no run first inning in the Orioles-Rangers matchup tonight as well. I'm feeling good about this card, Ben. I feel
great about this card. I can't recall a show where we, came on the air and we're like, listen, guys, our card sucks tonight. There's sometimes where like we've had a little bit of concerns and we always voice it when we're just like, it's more of a lean as opposed to a play. But I think you and I have put together a solid card tonight. I'm expecting we go 4 of 6 tonight. I think that's a reasonable play.
I would like that a lot. I had a rough stretch like early last week. Like I had a bad stretch in baseball. I lost like 10 straight prop bet picks in a row. It was not going good.
Happens.
But I've turned it around the last couple of days. Yeah, I turned it around the last couple of days. It's been making me miss the NBA because that's my bread and butter. I'm like tired of trying to watch some of these games, but it's all right. We got Don Play just dropped in the chat. He said, "Am I crazy for liking the Reds today?" Ben, I know you're on the Marlins.
Yeah, I'm on the Marlins, but I feel like the Red situation is more reflective of I think they're getting a little overhyped from taking a series against Baltimore at home. I still look at this team as not particularly good. Listen, the Marlins are a bottom 3 offense since the All-Star break. Like it's them, the Pirates, and the Angels. Like I'm not saying they're good. I'm saying I'm backing more so the upside of Luzardo against a Reds team that has had their issues against left-handed pitching. So he may not even. There's always a possibility, Peter, that Luzardo only goes 4 or 5 innings coming back from a lengthy injured list stint, and then they're able to get to the Marlins bullpen. But I'm betting on the upside here with Luzardo at a reasonable price. That's why I'm on the Marlins side.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you have 2 teams that are just kind of like average teams, you're not laying a crazy number with the Reds. Obviously, like Ben, you're not laying a crazy number with Miami. So I don't think it matters. Like either side, if you feel confident, I go for it. I'm probably not going to play anything in this game just because I'm a Hunter Green's so volatile. I get scared betting. I bet on him a couple of times this year, and one time he threw 7 innings, 1 hit ball, and like I bet him to lose. It was just like not good. I was like, I can't do this guy anymore because the next night he'll give up 5 home runs. That's just the way it goes. Don also has another comment before we get into our NFL segment. Do you guys have a 3-team parlay I can play today? Oh, Ben, do we got something we can put together off the top of the head here? I'm trying to think.
Off the top of my head, probably. You know what I'll do? Because our guy Joe Thomas did a great job with his MLB parlay pick today, which you can find, by the way, over at BetSided. I got it loaded up. And it's properly named the Better Cash Saul parlay because, of course, Better Call Saul back on the air tonight. He's going with the Mets on the run line, minus 145 against the Nationals. The Cleveland Guardians, minus 150 against the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Detroit Tigers is a short dog tonight with Tariq Skubal on the mound. I think he's going up against either Aaron or Anibal Sanchez. I forget his name over with the Twins, but Skubal had a much better season. I'm not sure why he's a dog there. And then another underdog with the San Francisco Giants. I would say you could probably do the 3-teamer without the Giants and the Dodgers. I'll leave it at that. Peter, you might disagree. But the 14 parlay that he has on the card, just over plus 1,200 odds. So a $100 bet would net you a little over $120. So hopefully that answers your question. You can read up a little bit more about it over at BetSided.
I love it, Ben. We got a little breaking news. If Joanne will let me slide this into the show here. My Yankees just acquired Frankie Montas, so I'm pretty fired up about that.
They got a busy day.
Yeah, and they also got Lou Trevino, the relief pitcher in the deal as well. Haven't seen the return yet, and the Houston Astros got Trey Mancini from the Baltimore Orioles. So 2 huge trades going down in the middle of the show.
See, that's too bad because I like Trey Mancini, and now I can't root for him because he's a Houston Astro. That's really disappointing. I will say this about Montas, like, if you have a guy that's a good, high-quality, serviceable arm that is going to keep the ball down in Yankee Stadium, and that's a big deal, especially – like, I was checking the humidity with the weather forecast tonight, Peter, because, the ball tends to carry a little bit more. Domingo Germán, by the way, like, is giving up 3.5 home runs per 9 innings this year in limited fashion. It's part of the reason I'm on Eugenio Suarez for my daily dinger pick. But Montas, one of the better pitchers in the sport at limiting home runs, that's a great fit for them, especially when they're dealing with some issues in that rotation. I have to feel like this might be Germán's last start for a while with the addition of Montas. So. And they grab a couple really good relievers today. Yankees are making some moves at the deadline. You love to see it.
I respect Brian Cashman for going all in here because this is the team to go all in on. Like, the Yankees have had teams over the past couple of years where, like, they were contenders, but you saw there were clear flaws with the team. This team has flaws. Don't get me wrong. That's why they've had to make these trades. But part of the reason they have these flaws is, like, the injuries to guys in the bullpen. Like, if Michael King and Chad Green don't get hurt, they wouldn't have needed a bullpen arm. But to get Efros, to get Trevino, like, that's huge. Obviously, they got Benintendi so they can get Joey Gallo up out of here. And then now Frankie Montas, where he's probably your second best pitcher immediately. The Yankees gave up JP Sears. Oh, wow. They gave up their 2 top pitching prospects today, which I don't love.
Wow.
They gave
Montas
up.
Is under how much more control? Is he a free agent at the end of this year?
No, end of next year.
Okay,
so they didn't give up anything too crazy. They gave up Waldachuk, who was their number 1 left-handed pitching prospect. He was 6. Obviously, they gave the Cubs, I forgot the kid's last name. I can't pronounce it. Their number 7 prospect, who was their number 1 righty pitching prospect. So those were their 2 top pitching prospects, which is tough, but you got to do what you got to do. And then they gave up JP Sears, who's been good for them this year, lefty. He was in their top 20. And then they gave up 2 players, Bowman and Medina, who are both, I believe, I was looking at their top 30 today. They're both in like that late 10s, early teens area, but they held on to Dominguez, Volpe, Peraza, which is a huge win if you're the Yankees. I mean, those are the 3 guys that are like your big time prospects. So
I know you're in Connecticut, so you're not necessarily in the New York area, but over under 3.5 hours before some New York sports talk show host accidentally refers to Lou Trevino as Lee Trevino.
Oh, like immediately. It's going to happen. Somebody's going to mess it up immediately. That's just the way it's going to go.
Chris Lee Adams didn't have a beard.
I am shocked right now. I want to get into our NFL segment. I'm shocked that's all the Yankees had to give up. I thought Peraza, to get both those guys, Peraza was 100% gone.
So here's, before we get into NFL, last question on the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
Are they done? Is there more cards that they're willing to play ahead of this year? And as I try to find their latest future odds, I I mean, they're right now the consensus line on the Yankees. They're tied with the Dodgers right now.
Mhm.
Plus 350, pretty consensus across the board with LA. You like them still? Do you still have? I know you did your MLB power rankings at BetSided today. With these moves, do they now move ahead of the Astros, who you had number 1, versus the Yankees, who you had number 2?
No, because the Yankees they can't beat the Astros right now. So like I'll
Okay,
believe it when I see it at that point. Like
got it.
that's the reasoning kind of like the Yankees have the better record, but the Astros have their number right now. They've beat them 4 out of 6 times this season so far. So I mean, I have to give the Astros the nod there. I bet the Yankees preseason. Part of me kind of wishes I bet the Astros preseason too, so I could like hedge some happiness here, but that's all right. I didn't do that. So we'll see. I I like the Yankees here. I think they're probably done. I saw they were trying to make an offer for Ohtani. That John Heyman said now the Angels aren't going to trade Ohtani. I
Yeah,
don't ever think they were really in on Soto because I mean if they're going to pay Aaron Judge, they're definitely not going to pay at the same time.
correct.
So they got Benintendi, which was big because they did need another outfielder. And then you got 2 bullpen arms. I was hoping one of them was going to be David Robertson, but I will take Efros, even though they had to give up probably a better prospect to get him because they have him for 5 years, hopefully now. So yeah, successful deadline, but at the same time, I think the Astros can still beat them. I think the Dodgers are still probably the best all-around team in baseball. If Walker Buehler and Dustin May are back by the playoffs, then that's going to be a real tough team to beat. And the Mets are good too. There's some serious talent in the major leagues right now.
Yeah, I commend them for not waiting until the very end of the deadline, for going ahead saying these are the guys that we want to acquire, setting the market as opposed to waiting for the market to respond. There's certainly 2 schools of thought, but those are the guys that they felt comfortable with moving on from. And yeah, some of the pitching prospects and the names that they've moved on from are pretty substantial, but it's World Series or bust for the Yankees, and
Exactly.
this team and these additions make them substantially better. So hard to argue with what Brian Cashman is doing right now.
Yeah, the 2 kids that gave up, Waldichuk and Wazinski, that they gave up today, like they're very good. Like you look at like Waldichuk has 116 strikeouts in 76 innings this year, but at the same time, like he wasn't going to help you this year. So if that's the case, then you have to try and win with this team. You've been too good this year not to try.
No doubt.
Um,
No doubt.
yeah. So that was fun. I love a little breaking news on the show. It's always good to get
Yeah.
into some breaking news. But now we can get into our NFL segment here. Preseason betting. We got the first preseason game starting on Thursday, August 4th. We got the Hall of Fame game. So we have a couple of things to look at when you're betting on the preseason, what you should be doing, because it's not the same, obviously, as betting the regular season. So, Ben, I know one of the ones we have is the same. It's with the coaches. So you want to take it away with that one, and we'll get us started.
Yeah, I think it's paramount that before you bet on preseason, you have to know which coaches and coaching staffs take it much more seriously than that of their counterparts. I know you got some notes on John Harbaugh, but just for perspective, in week 1 of the preseason over his career, he's 12-1. Against the spread over the course of his preseason career, he's 37-15. That's covering at 71.1% of the time. Conversely, Matt LaFleur with the Green Bay Packers has only hit on 28.5% of his preseason games against the spread. There's 2 schools of thoughts. There's the coaches that want their team to execute in the preseason to make sure that they're putting a quality product on the field, even if that means potential risk of injury, because they want their team to be ready and prepared come regular season time. There's also the school of thought that we just have to survive the preseason, get our starters out, give them a couple reps, and make sure that they get out so that they are ready for when the games count, especially for the second year where you now have 17 games. So it is important, Peter, and I know you'll stress on this too, of knowing the coaching matchups going into some of these games. And remember, too, it's probably going to be occasionally inflated a little bit, too, because the odds makers have the same information as you do. But if you catch it early enough, sometimes it's going to be advantageous that you get a line where you want it to be based off of the coaching matchup.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I like you said, you have to look at the coaches. Obviously, Harbaugh's like strategy of playing these guys in preseason kind of backfired last year because they had so many guys get hurt. So I wonder if he changes a little bit of that. Bless you. If he changes a little bit of that. But yeah, I think it's super important because like there's certain coaches like Sean McVay, great NFL coach, like one of the best coaches in football. He doesn't play any of his guys in preseason. So like you probably should never bet on the Rams. That's kind of the thing you got to look at. I know there's a couple places out there that have against the spread records. I know we're going to be putting something out on coaching records probably over the next couple days on BetSided during the preseason. So that is something I would definitely reference to go forward to. And then kind of to tie into that, Ben, I know we both kind of talked about that with like the news. Like you need to bet on teams that like are actually trying to figure something out in the preseason. I think like if you have a quarterback battle, those guys are one, they're going to be playing extremely hard, obviously.
Yeah.
But two, they're going to get a longer leash. So you might see like, for example, with the Steelers, like Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky are both probably going to have pretty long leashes in these preseason games to show what they can do. So if that's the case, you're going to see more of the first team offense out there with those guys. Those guys are going to probably play a lot better than, some random third string guy who's coming in for a team that's just trying to get through the game because they know who their starters are. They don't really care. They don't want to risk them getting hurt. So I think the news aspect, you might be able to catch a line before it moves. But like a lot of guys are going to get ruled out that are normally starters, and you kind of just can't bank on a team like, oh, they're going to play this guy. Like most of the times these starters are going to play maximum 1 or 2 series, especially the first couple of weeks of the preseason. So I think that's something you have to keep an eye on as well.
No doubt. Another one for me is paying attention to which teams have a lot of veteran quarterbacks kind of at the back end of their roster. So obviously Carson Wentz is the guy in Washington, but a guy that started a bunch of games for them last year is Taylor Heineke. He might be looking at the preseason as an opportunity where if a team has a quarterback go down, he puts on a good preseason show. That's somebody that could also increase his trade value, move to an opportunity in a team where he might be able to start a game. Buffalo, not necessarily the case for somebody like, Case Keenum or Matt Barkley, but these are serviceable NFL backups that have been in this league for a long time, that are comfortable in this offense, that have a chance because they're going to protect Josh Allen at all costs. These guys are going to spend quality minutes in the preseason, and they're going to put up numbers as well. Pay attention to some of those veteran guys, the guys that have been through this grind of the preseason before, that have gone through the ropes of throwing a number 3, number 4 guys, get the ball out quick because you're playing behind, bottom feeder offensive linemen. That's something that has been advantageous to bettors in the past is going with the veteran quarterbacks as opposed to that young up and coming player that you simply just don't know that much about.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. A lot of these guys with experience, like, kind of matters when you're playing against a bunch of young rookies. It's just going to be easier for them to see the game. The last one I had was to bet underdogs in the preseason, which has been actually crazy. I found this today. Underdogs since 1995 in the preseason are covering the spread at a 53.7% clip. They're 844, 727, and 51 against the spread. So pretty significant number right there for underdogs. And like I said, like during the regular season, like teams are underdogs for a reason. In the preseason, it's really tough to tell why a team should be an underdog. Like you may see a report like, oh, this guy's going to play tonight. Like the Packers are going to play Aaron Rodgers tonight, and he might play 3 plays. And then it's like, oh, the Packers were
the ball up every time.
Exactly. So betting on the underdogs, you're giving yourself obviously the margin of error of like, if your team loses, you still have a chance they can cover depending upon what the spread is. So I think that's an advantageous way to go, especially in these ones where like if a team is favored by a ton of points, like bet the underdog. Who knows? Like those second, third string guys, they're trying to make the roster. So they're going to be hungry to keep the game close, to show that they can make some plays. So I think just based on that trend, underdogs 100% are worth a bet in the preseason.
No doubt. Last one from me regarding some things to look out for when you're betting on the NFL preseason. Most of the time when you're betting on the NFL regular season, you almost want to trust the numbers as opposed to some of the information because coaches lie. There's coach speak. There's always deception. And yes, there's some unbelievable beat reporters and national reporters across the league, but a lot of times their information is specific and it might be a little bit one-sided. In the preseason, it really doesn't matter. And it's a different case because in the regular season, the numbers usually move as a result of actual information. But in the preseason, once the information comes out, then that's when the numbers really start to move. So follow your favorite beat reporters, get Twitter alerts whenever they mention that somebody is not going to be playing or someone is expected to get the bulk of the snaps, because that's likely to cause the number to move as opposed to the other way around in the regular season.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's 100% that the injuries and the guys being in or out is going to be so important to the preseason. So don't just blindly bet teams that are normally contenders. Like you got to make sure those guys are playing as well. So that's our little NFL preseason primer for you. We'll have a plenty of stuff over at BetSide. We already got some Hall of Fame game betting previews up there as well. But let's jump into our game of the night, Ben, because we got a great game, honestly, tonight. The two of the best teams in baseball last year, still two very solid teams in the NL West, Dodgers, Giants. Logan Webb against Andrew Heaney tonight. I know we have a question in here from earlier about Miles talking about the total in this game, but Ben, where are you leaning in this one?
I know that there's an impressive trend that I know that you will reference regarding Logan Webb and the San Francisco Giants at home. But like so many other pitchers in the past, the Dodgers get your hands on this guy and they fix whatever issues were there before. For the last couple of years, Andrew Heaney had given up just all sorts of gopher balls on the other side of town in Anaheim, like leading the league in home runs per 9 innings. Last year, his home runs per 9 was 2, and he eventually went to the Yankees and he did okay, but he also gave a bunch of home runs there. Right now, through 4 starts, he's gone just under 20 innings. He's striking out more than 12 and a half guys per 9 innings. His home runs per 9 is by far and away the lowest number of his career. Now, you might say to yourself, okay, Giants are still a competitive team. They have scouting history against Heaney. Logan Webb is still a very good pitcher. All of that is true. But I buy what the Dodgers invested in Heaney to try and turn him into what's been a dynamite pitcher through his first 4 starts. I think you're getting a discounted price on the better team here. And the Giants have been inconsistent. I know they took 2 out of 3 against the Cubs, but the Cubs are bad and they're trading away half their team. I think the Dodgers are a good value here, even though I know what a lot of the trends suggest about the Giants. I just think Heaney is good enough, especially against the Giants team that's really been inconsistent hitting the baseball as of late. So give me the Dodgers at minus 140 tonight. That's my play on this game.
We're going to be on opposite sides, but I don't. You make some good points about the Dodgers because obviously they've been one of the best teams in baseball, especially since the All-Star break. They've been playing really well, and the Giants haven't been. But I'm going to back probably the craziest trend in all of baseball right now, which is Logan Webb at home over the last 2 seasons. The Giants are 21-3 in Logan Webb's home starts over the last 2 seasons. So basically been an automatic. They haven't played well. They've lost 7 of their last 10. I get that. But the Dodgers, their last 7 games, they've come against the Rockies and the Nationals. So they haven't been playing, the craziest competition coming into this where, it looks like they're rolling through everybody. They should be rolling through those teams. Those are teams that they should beat. You make some great points about Heaney. Like, he's obviously found something this year. At the same time, it's only been 4 starts, so I'm trying not to read too much into sample size. And maybe I'm biased because I watched him just get absolutely lit up for the Yankees last year. But I feel like at some point he's going to come back to earth in some way. And if I'm going to back a starting pitcher in this, I think it's the Giants. I have to go with the Giants at home. I have to back Logan Webb here. So I like them on the money line at plus 120. I know a win bet you could get them at plus 128 earlier today. I ended up betting them at DraftKings at plus 120. So I think they're worth a shot as a home dog. And these two teams, they normally play very close and great games. I know we had Dodgers Giants as a Daily Betslip game a few weeks back, and it ended up being the Giants taking the lead in like the 8th inning, and then the Dodgers coming back and winning it late. So this is going to be a fun game to watch. But I like the Giants as home dogs.
Listen, the trend speaks for itself, and Webb is still a very good pitcher, and he's had success against the Dodgers in the past. Andrew Heaney could absolutely get blown up like a balloon tonight. Like, it's very much in the cards because we've seen it over the last several years. But I know that the Twitter poll, by the way, for this between everybody has been really close. Do we have a winner? I know we were going back and forth on this for a little bit.
We do. I think we have the Giants win the Twitter poll. So Giants
dog wins. Okay.
So it was tied on the on YouTube with the Dodgers, but the community on Twitter overwhelmingly had the Giants. So we go with the Giants tonight.
Okay.
So Ben, you don't have to bet it because you're on the Dodgers, but I might double down on the Giants here for the community.
Rules and
I
rule. If I have to sprinkle a little bit on based off the community pick, that's what we agreed going into BetSlip a couple months ago. That's what we do. I'll go ahead and throw a little bit on the other side at plus money.
I do want to talk the total real quick if we have some time
Yeah.
in this game.
Yeah.
To answer Miles'
I know
question
Miles
from
asked that
before.
question a little bit ago.
Yeah. So my initial lean would be to take the under because of how well Logan Webb has been against the Dodgers. And I think he's pitched pretty well so far this season. He got a sub-3 ERA. And as you mentioned, Andrew Heaney's been really good. And I noticed in his last start, he only went 4 innings. I know he was coming off the IL, gave up 1 hit. Like, you can kind of limit him from making the big mistake. You just don't let him have the opportunity to do it. I could see this game going under. I know the total's at 8, which is kind of a low total, but that would be my lean. I don't really have a strong pick on it, though, to be honest.
I would lean under 4 in the first 5 innings because of how we feel about both these starting pitchers. Like it could very easily be like a 1-0 or a 2-1 game. And remember, like the thing about Heaney, like you said, part of what's made him really effective is they're not asking him to go very long. He's only gone about 19 2/3 innings pitched in his last 4 starts. So they're getting him out before he's going through a lot of these lineups for the 3rd time. And if you trust in Logan Webb, you should probably trust in Heaney at least the first couple times through the order. So if I had to play on the under, I'd probably go under 4 through the first 5 would be my play.
I like that a lot because I know the Giants bullpen has not been good this year.
Yeah,
I believe it's like bottom 10 in the league. So that makes a lot more sense because that's putting a lot of pressure on Logan Webb to kind of keep it 1-2 runs through like 7 innings with this Giants bullpen.
Yep.
So I don't mind. First 5. Yeah, first 5 kind of seems like the spot.
That's a show.
Jam-packed show. That's a show.
Yeah, we had some breaking news. We got into a little Dodgers Giants. We talked preseason NFL. What more can you ask for?
Yeah, that's a heck of a show. We appreciate you guys all hanging out with us. We're back again tomorrow on Daily Betslip. It's going to be at 5 p.m. normal time. Ben is back on. He's going to be with Ian tomorrow. So make sure you guys tune in for that. If you liked what you saw today, hit the subscribe button below, like, comment. Keep the comments coming on future shows. We love to interact with you guys. Give us our picks and break down yours as well. And we also have Green on the Greens coming up at 6 Eastern time with Ian and Cody Williams. So make sure to tune into that. They're talking the Wyndham Championship this week. We're getting close to the FedEx Cup, I believe, correct?
Very close. Yeah, this is the final of the regular season ones before we start diving into the FedEx Cup. By the way, this is one of those weeks too, Peter, where everyone's going to want to bet on Webb Simpson because he named his daughter Wyndham because of this championship. So poor Wyndham Simpson. But now your dad has to win it every year. So good luck to you.
So yeah, oh man, that's a tough one. I might just throw one on Webb Simpson just for that. You never know. But again, appreciate you guys hanging out with us. It's a fun show, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.